can local councils and NGOs be integrated into the enforcement and support ecosystem, but without overburdening already thin resources?
I'm very happy that you mentioned the overburdening of NGOs, because I've worked with quite a few NGOs, and yeah, they are experiencing. It's almost like the enforcement has in part been outsourced to them, and so they're overstretched, under resourced. But they are such a vital part of the outreach in the communities, and as are the local councils, obviously. I think in large part that is about. Well, it's about funding in the first place. I think that, at least to my knowledge, federally, there has been quite some support after the introduction of the Federal Modern Slavery Act to try and see what NGOs would need in order to help to effectively enforce the Modern Slavery Act. I think that. And so the funding is always, I suppose, what it comes down to with civil society and NGOs at the end of the day. But I think for the government to effectively, facilitate forums where it is possible for local councils and NGOs and other stakeholders to build capacity and to learn from one another, I think that would be very, very important. I think that has, to a degree, already happened. But if I was listening to the evidence just before being provided by people that would just seated here, for example, is it the community connections, I believe they referred to, where there was one person who was basically servicing half the state. I don't know how they do it. So I think that in large part it's about capacity building and upskilling, but potentially, and this comes back to one of the points that we made in our submission as well, is to provide appropriate training to people for whom this might be relatively new. You might be on local council and not really have had any experience with this, and that experience does reside in civil society, but obviously they are overstretched and they can't just provide training to anyone. On that, if you indulge me, on that topic of training, I do think that, and this has been mentioned by previous people providing evidence, not just today, but I think last time as well, among which the Office of the New South Wales Anti-Slavery Commissioner, is to roll out, I think, standardized training that is specifically tailored to people in rural areas, people that might be on local council, and people that might be far away from the I suppose, the metropolitan service provision, because I think that is something that's been stated quite a bit as well, that the legal services, the assistance, the crisis accommodation, etc., like a lot of that is quite focused on metropolitan areas and absent in rural areas. But to come back to your question, that is a question of funding, but also I think for government to provide, to facilitate forums where all those different stakeholders rurally can come together and form networks that facilitate knowledge sharing